Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all parts of the world joining us today in the first ever IRF Young Professional Talks on the road to Istanbul. I am Ray Makalalag, currently a Master of Transport student from the University of Sydney and an IRF Young Professional leader. And as you all may know, the International Road Federation World Congress will be held this October. And as we near this big gathering of road transport professionals across all sectors and disciplines, we want to build the momentum of young professionals through this professional talk series. So before anything else, I'd like to share some information about the IRF World Congress. So Cecilia, can you please share the screen? By the way, it's Cecilia's birthday, so let's also give her a virtual greeting of happy birthday. So the IRF World Congress will be on the 14th to 18th October in Istanbul, Turkey, and will revolve around the theme Connecting to Empower Mobility, Roads as Enablers of a Sustainable Future for All. So that QR code actually there on screen will lead you to the official event website, which will be live within the week. However, if you're really excited, detailed information can already be found at the IRF website, which is irfnet.ch. You can see that there and also in all of our Zoom backgrounds. So next slide, please. So attending the Congress is an excellent opportunity to learn from global leaders, industry experts, and the academia, and representatives from the public and private sectors. We are expecting over 2,000 to attend. Hopefully, most of us will be there, including you guys attending this webinar. So now, I guess we can proceed with the webinar, and I'd like to introduce and of course, express my thanks to our vital partner for the realization of this first IRF Young Professional Talks, the Partnership for Sustainable and Low Carbon Transport, or SLOCAT partnership. Thank you very much, and over to you, Nicola.
Yes, thank you, Ray, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. My name is Nicola Medimorek. I'm the Director of Data Analysis and Research at SLOCAT. I'm also the Program Manager of the Young Leaders in Sustainable Transport project, which is a joint activity by SLOCAT and the Volvo Research and Educational Foundation. The SLOCAT VREF, Young Leaders, and the IRF Young Professionals will have a debate on the controversy between optimizing current transport systems versus new technologies. The two young professional groups are mixed up, and the arguments for optimizing current transport systems will be shared by Spencer, Shashank, Cecilia, and Regina. The arguments for new technologies will be shared by Mark, Tendekai, Ray, Masimba, and Carol. The reason why we meet here, why we do this mock-up debate, is that there are actually really groups with a very strong opinion on one of these sides. There are people who believe that future technologies are going to solve all our issues, that they're going to solve climate change, air pollution, road crashes, and so on. On the other side, there's also a group that strongly believes that we already have all the solutions at hand, they're just not yet fully optimized, not really used up to scale. Again, please be aware that this is a mock-up debate, and the presented arguments and positions may not reflect the personal opinion of the panelist, nor does anything that's being said here reflect the official opinions by the IRF or SLOCAT. And now, to kick off the debate, I want to invite Mark to share his opinion in his favor of new technologies and why we need to focus on this approach in his opinion. Please, Mark.
Thank you very much, Nicola, and a lot of thanks to all those who joined us today, so that all together we can explore and discuss the pros and cons of new technologies and solutions versus optimizing current transport systems necessary to make informed decisions for ourselves and the planet. My name is Mark Jonathan Douanla Fotu. I am a SLOCAT VREF Young Leader, and I am currently also doing an advanced master in smart mobility in Paris. Prior to joining the Advanced Master, I was a transport consultant at the World Bank. Without further ado, I would like to dive into why we need new technologies to achieve a greener, safer, efficient, inclusive, and resilient transport system. The 2030 timeline to achieve the United Nations 2030 Agenda and its 17 SDGs is rapidly approaching in the 6 coming years. Transport has a fundamental and important cross-cutting role to play in achieving the SDGs, in particular regarding SDG 1, which relates to ending poverty, SDG 2, ending hunger, SDG 3, ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being, SDG 5, achieving gender equality, SDG 7, ensuring sustainable and modern energy, SDG 9, building resilient infrastructure, SDG 11, making cities sustainable, and SDG 13, taking action to combat climate change and its impact. In addition, we must accomplish the objectives of the Paris Agreement to limit the increase in the global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. However, greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise, with transport being amongst the major causes and accounting for 20%. Under business as usual, transport emissions are projected to nearly double by 2050 compared to 2019 levels. The world has exceeded 1.2 degrees Celsius of global warming above pre-industrial levels, with each decade registering higher temperatures than the preceding one. Moreover, a polycrisis of multifaceted challenges across the world are putting the already elusive progress towards the SDG and the Paris Agreement at increased risk. Thus, current ambition levels and pathways are not sufficient to meet the aforementioned targets and goals. We need a paradigm shift towards transformative new technologies and solutions capable of revolutionizing and accelerating the way towards an equitable, healthy, green and resilient transport and mobility. We should therefore explore, adopt, and deploy the enormous opportunities that new technologies, the digital and new solutions could offer in providing a smarter path towards economic growth and human development goals in a sustainable and equitable way. Recent technological advancements in connected and autonomous mobility, clean energy solutions, electric road systems, sensing technologies, data analytics, ticketing, e-tolling, telecommunication networks, machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain, Internet of Things, optimal control systems, and many more are offering an unprecedented opportunity in optimizing travel time, reducing travel costs, in optimizing traffic flow and managing congestion, in reducing pollution and GHG emissions, in reducing road crashes, in enhancing mobility, in enriching data collection, in providing and enhancing real-time information and tracking, in fleet management, in predictive maintenance, and in increasing the reliability, the resilience, and the adaptation of transport systems, and much more. The advent of new mobility solutions and services, in particular shared mobility such as carpooling, ride-hailing, and mobility as a service, are also offering users convenient, environmental friendly, cost-effective, on-demand, and seamless travel experiences. I think my colleagues will shed more light on some of the examples. Therefore, to conclude, by creating tools and new business models that address both economic and social growth and environmental concerns, technological innovations are challenging the conventional wisdom that a stronger economy and a higher quality of life leads to higher demand for mobility and larger environmental impact. Therefore, technology could serve as the enabler and facilitator for sustainable transport by providing solutions of better planning, management, operations, and maintenance. Hence, embracing these technological innovations is crucial for decarbonizing the transportation sector and achieving the UN SDG goals and the Paris Agreement. Thank you very much, everyone, and over to you, dear Nicole.
Yeah, thanks a lot for setting the scene and for kicking us off. Yeah, I would like to invite Spencer to share his arguments in favor of optimizing current transport systems. Over to you, Spencer. Yeah, Spencer, if you unmute and you can.
Hello, over to me.
Yes, it's your turn.
Okay. Am I coming in clear? Because my internet seems to be unstable. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, very well.
Very good.
Okay, great. So, yep, my name is Spencer Estilo Jr., and of course, I'm one of SLOCAT VREF's young leaders in sustainable transport. I do currently serve as the director of the Division of Climate Change and Environment, and also the NDC Transport Sector Focal Point on Mitigation at the Ministry of Transport in Liberia. So I'm basically leading efforts and implementing actions and measures that aim to shift the developmental priorities of Liberia's transport sector toward a low carbon, inclusive, green, resilient, and sustainable system. So my argument in favor of optimizing current transport systems focuses on two important points: efficiency and sustainability. So for my first point, I rate efficiency over innovation for the fact that I said before, or instead of constantly chasing after the latest technological advancements and investing in costly and unproven new technologies, we should prioritize improving existing transport system to achieve maximum efficiency. So for example, the city of Copenhagen has achieved this by making substantial investment in cycling infrastructure, which has resulted in a staggering 41% of trips to work and to school being made by bike. This has reduced congestion and improved overall system efficiency. Furthermore, the Copenhagen's cycling infrastructure investments have led to 29% reduction in CO2 emissions and have saved the city over 23 million pounds annually in health costs associated with improved air quality and physical activity. So this is a clear demonstration of the benefits of prioritizing efficiency over innovation. So my second point has to do with achieving sustainability and resilience through optimal transport systems. So we all understand that there is an urgent need to shift towards sustainable transport solutions that have the potential to lower environmental impact and promote resilience in the face of climate change and other challenges. So optimal transport systems can achieve these aims. An example of this is the city of Curitiba that is currently reaping the benefits through optimization of their current transport system. So Curitiba in Brazil's groundbreaking BRT system prioritizes sustainable transport solutions. So their system has reduced emissions, improved air quality, and provide reliable and efficient transport for residents. In fact, studies have shown that for every passenger using the BRT system, there is a 50% reduction in CO2 emissions compared to traditional bus system. So this point concludes my argument that optimizing the current transport system is a more effective path to efficiency and sustainability than just relying on new technologies. Thank you. Over.
Yeah, and let's directly continue with Tendekai, please.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Nicola. Kia ora, everyone. Greetings from New Zealand. My name is Tendekai. I'm one of the IRF Young Professional Leads, and I'm also a civil engineer working for WSP New Zealand. I'm pleased to welcome you all today as we stand at the crossroads of transportation history. On one path lies the familiar route of optimizing our current transportation system, a path of incremental improvements to say, and on the other, the road less traveled calls us towards innovation and technological advancement. My team and I stand before you to argue that the future of zero emissions, zero fatalities, zero delays in transportation lies not only in refining the old, but embracing new technology. And new technology is the solution. And I repeat, new tech is the solution. Spencer, the previous speaker, argues for efficiency over innovation. Yet history shows us that innovation is the engine. Is the engine. Yet that will driving efficiency forward. Innovation has driven efficiency in the transport system. It's not a secret. Take for example the SLOCAT system in New South Wales, Australia, where delays have been significantly reduced as collection is made easy by just tapping the card. Today, the system allows not just the user to use their appropriate card, but also to use other cards like your credit cards, Google Pay, and even Apple Pay. So imagine what would have happened by now if we just save the buck and fold our hands and say, no, it's expensive. No. We cannot be doing that. So for over 2 decades, I mean, we have been seeing intelligent safe transportation systems in play, and it's have been revolutionizing the way we navigate and manage transportation. I believe by further integrating all these advanced technologies like sensing, information processing, communication, ITS will improve safety, efficiency, and sustainability of our road transportation. Mobility as a service, for example, exemplifies this shift. It offers on-demand travel options through digital interfaces, making transportation more accessible to all for all and also user-friendly. So to achieve efficiency and accommodate growth of our cities, I think I believe we must embrace new technologies and continue with business as usual. Of course, it's never and it's not a sustainable option. Transport efficiency also requires, as we all know, robust traffic data analysis. And with AI's, I mean, artificial intelligence ability to process and analyze large traffic data in real time, it can provide drivers with the most efficient routes, predict travel times, and identify potential bottlenecks, enabling preemptive measures to mitigate congestion before it even, occurs. Yeah, who knows? And also real traffic monitoring, control and prediction supported by big data. Of course, use of not forgetting AI, provide optimized routes. We cannot debate about this. So to meet our climate goals, we cannot ignore the need to advance new technologies. Decarbonizing transport is not just a matter of optimizing. It's not just a matter of optimizing. It's more complex than we think. And complexity without innovation is like mending a broken X with a bubble gum. So another to counter Spencer's point on sustainability and BRT in Brazil, Spencer raised a great example of a success story in reducing emissions. That's good. That's great. Well done. But while the BRT in Brazil has made strides in reducing emissions, it is not immune to crashes. Crash avoidance technologies such as collision warning systems, intelligent speed adaptation, geofencing, infrastructure to vehicle comms are all examples of new technology in the transportation safety space. And they are not just technologies, they are proven technologies that have been predicted to reduce crashes and carbon dioxide emissions. We should never forget that human beings are prone to errors, and we should utilize these technologies to compensate our human limitations. So, in conclusion, while Spencer's points are well taken, they represent a cautious approach that risks stagnation. I urge you all to consider the broader horizon where technologies pave the way for a safer, more efficient, and sustainable transportation system. I thank you, and over to you, Shashank.
So thank you, Tendekai, for that. And you've definitely taken all us aback a little on our different positions. So before I start, namaste, I'm Shashank, I'm from India, and good morning, good evening to everyone. I do agree with you, Tendekai, on the insights that you provided. But despite all that, I still firmly believe with what Spencer was highlighting on optimizing the current transportation, right? And if you allow me to put in my several counterpoints to you. So first and foremost, when we talk about cost effectiveness and feasibility, one of the primary advantages of optimizing your current transport system is that it's cost effective, you can plan accordingly, and you don't have to necessarily go through the ups and downs of hurdles that come with various new tech deployments, right? So the cost effectiveness does play a significant role in the feasibility. As an example, you just talked about Opal cards in New South Wales. So yes, they streamlined collection, they increased collection. However, the amount of money that went into adding those card systems could have been deployed to expanding the network, right? Getting more people on the transport infrastructure. So that would be my counterpoint to you. Alternately, we have to understand that it's not just about expanding that network. It could also be going green, right? Through cycling and adding more enhanced transport components to it, right? So you need to understand that though there might be effective counting each penny, as you said, yep, but we might want to also bring more people on board with the current system, right? Then secondly, Copenhagen and Curitiba are a prime example of how optimization has been successful in the past, right? So, and thank you for your applause there, Tendika. I really appreciate it. But you have to understand that Copenhagen's investment in cycling infrastructure would have also reduced CO2 emissions, right? So you have to understand that it's just not CO2 emissions, it's also the health benefits that go along with it. So new technology, like new technology makes us more productive, but at time it also makes us unhealthy, right? So you have to balance the two. Then also in the Curitiba BRT example, you have to also see that getting more people on the BRT reduced emissions. So how do you then trade off against emissions versus new tech? So those are some 2 points on that. Next, I would say some other points that I would like to add is around scalability and inclusivity. So with new tech, one of the challenges that remains is how do you scale that? So if you talk about autonomous mobility, if you talk about mobility as a service, right? Yes, when we look at the developed nations, when we look at the rich economies, yes, they do provide a solution. But when you talk about developing nations, emerging economies, how do you accommodate for the needs of those people there, right? Not everyone can afford an Uber, not everyone can afford an Ola, right? Some people still travel with trains, some people still travel with locals. So that's one thing. At the same time, with the new tech, there are challenges in technology adoption. So autonomous vehicles, what happens when someone hacks your Waymo or someone hacks your autonomous vehicle, right? How do you then safeguard from these cybersecurity threats? So we have to take into a holistic approach in mind when we are talking about new tech, and optimizing the current tech actually leads to getting more work done and more things deployed now and then rather than trying to get something new in place. Lastly, to further expand on the last bit, expanding on or optimizing on your current infrastructure helps build a strong foundation for later, right? And prime example for that will be in India. In the last 10 years, there have been close to 59% expansion of road infrastructure. Now, when this expansion happened, best practices were also put in place without new tech, such as planting more trees. India deployed close to 390 million trees in the last 10 years. So we've not only expanded the road infrastructure, we made it greener too, right? Along with that, we used 3 million tons of waste or garbage just in the Delhi Ring Road alone. So these points where you're actually using the best practices from around the world in existing optimization can not only lead to just having a strong case for new tech, but it's actually building a case for us, which is wherein optimizing the current tech. So you have to keep in mind, how do you balance new tech versus the needs of the masses, right? And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Ray. And I'm sure Ray is going to talk about electric vehicles, which is close to his heart.
Thank you very much, Shashank. Um, so I'm actually also from the National Economic and Development Authority in the Philippines, and I'm currently here in Australia for a scholarship. So I'll still be back there in the Philippines to continue and make a difference there. Um, so back to my points. So Shashank has discussed some important points on cost effectiveness, feasibility, optimization, scalability and inclusivity, and mitigating risks and uncertainties. So I admit that there are really concerns with new technology, especially with its early deployment. And it can really be cost intensive, especially given that some countries have less resources than others. And making the most of what already exists can be an excellent course to follow. And in terms of context, for the case of Copenhagen and Curitiba, the emissions can essentially be reduced and provide better health outcomes, probably in the form of reducing premature deaths exacerbated by air pollution. However, I do believe that in context of heavily motorized scenes where cycling infrastructure is also together with traffic, it may still be subjecting the cyclist to air pollution. So not unless, of course, we adopt new technologies such as electric vehicles so that the cyclists can technically breathe cleaner air. So the adoption of electric vehicles is a strong case in reduction of emissions and providing cleaner air, which benefits the populated areas. Now, although it can be argued that emissions are offset from the city to the sources of energy and power plants, such as coal-fired power plants, the shift to renewable energy sources serve as an addition to the benefits, which is enabled by the adoption of new technologies, fired up with strong regulations and policies promoting renewable energy sources. So active travel, including cycling, requires relevant infrastructure where support greatly varies from country to country. Now, to put some context on that one, where I am currently at in Sydney, there has been a move to promote cycling and has targets of having mode share of 10% by 2030. So technically, that means that 10% of all the trips in the city of Sydney will be by bicycle. However, right now, I must say that most of the trips done here are by car. And not to mention, active travel mixed with internal combustion engine cars can also be detrimental to health outcomes, as this means more exposure of the active traveler to air pollution. So while policies can either serve a carrot or a stick to promote the shift to active modes, it entirely depends on the willingness of individuals to shift their behavior. So it's still on the behavior side of things, whether they like it or not. So in this argument, the electric cars, which does not heavily shift their behavior, so technically, people here in Australia most likely can afford electric vehicles. So therefore, for that matter, it can reap more benefits in the immediate time frame. But again, if we put it in the context of low middle income countries, developing countries, it might be a longer way to go. However, I'm still not giving up. Finally, I want to emphasize that everything we have now were once the so-called new technologies. We started out from carriages being pulled by horses. We found a problem. We went to the electric car. Actually, the first car was electric in the first place, the Ford Model T. And the phases of time simply allowed some of these technologies to be adopted while some of them would die out. So a new technology deployed in transport with an increased patronage gets more and more efficient through economies of scale, which in turn allows the continuous improvement of its quality as well as lower unit cost per user. So the improved quality attracts more users, and with more users, eventually the cost will be brought down. So cars used to be very expensive before, and now almost everybody can afford it. So we can also see that in the far horizon that electric vehicles may reach also that point. Thus, it can be argued that the current systems are the new technologies of their time, which have naturally been accepted by the users as it continued to evolve, and with relevant policies and regulations promoting their growth or decline. So it's at the end of the day, it's the people's choice whether they would adopt it or not. And we just have to continue bringing in new things for them to see which one works. And for that, Cecilia, the birthday girl, I'm sure you would probably comment on policy and regulation. Over to you.
Thank you, Ray. Hello, everyone. Olá. I'm Cecilia. I'm a young professional for IRF, and I'm also Innovation Program Coordinator from a rodovia that is the biggest two-road operation operated in Brazil. So thank you, Ray. Pretty interesting learning how technological advancement can lead to a significant environmental and health benefits in metropolis. And it's a good point saying that today's accepted systems were once new technologies themselves. So it's challenging to speak after so many strong arguments and relevant points, but let's go. So talking about policy and regulation alignment, when we consider where to optimize current transportation systems or create new technologies, the alignment with existing policies and regulations is a crucial factor. So for example, we can talk about existing frameworks. Existing transportation systems already comply with established safety, environmental, and operation standards. Enhancing these systems is generally more straightforward and less time-consuming than developing new regulatory frameworks for novel technologies. So we can also think about government policies and support, and it's usual for government to prioritize investment in current infrastructure to ensure immediately and reliable improvements. This focus aligns with the policy objective related to economic growth, social equity, and environmental sustainability. I can summarize by saying that improving existing transportation systems aligns well with current policies and regulations, ensuring compliance, maximizing existing investment, and delivering immediate benefits. This approach supports environmental goals, enhancing safety and accessibility, and is more political and economical feasible. The challenge when creating new technologies that improving current system presents a practical and efficient pathway to achieve sustainable and equitable transportation solutions. So this is all. Now I can pass the mic to Masiba.
Thank you, Cecilia and Tim, for your compelling arguments. My name is Masimba. I'm a member of SLOCAT VREF Young Leaders in Sustainable Transportation. I'm also a civil engineer and transport planner. I research industry choice modeling, looking at the willingness to adopt electric vehicles, focusing on Africa. So while there are merits in extracting the residual utility from what we have at the moment, I think there is still potential in new technology, especially in Africa and other developing countries. In addition to what my colleagues have argued, new technology can still drive economic growth, foster innovation, and hence user convenience, as well as address climate change, which are all crucial elements of a sustainable future that you are trying to create. In terms of economic growth and innovation, we can see that investment in new technologies, they stimulate economic growth by creating new industries and job opportunities, especially in Africa, where there are limited amount of jobs. For example, if you look at Rwanda, it's becoming a hub for tech-driven transport solutions. Just to mention a few initiatives, there are new companies like Ampersand, which assembles electric motorcycles. In addition to reducing the carbon footprint, this creates jobs in the manufacturing, assembling, and maintenance sector. So this shift towards electric mobility is positioning Rwanda into a destination for sustainable transport investment, as well as innovation in Africa. Another initiative in Rwanda is that has changed the healthcare logistics is their partnership with the Zipline drone delivery technology. So these drones, they deliver medical supplies like blood and vaccines to remote areas, which improve healthcare access and create new opportunities in the emerging drone industry. So basically, this advancements, they boost economy as well as align with the SDG goals, especially goal number 8 and goal number 9. So another point that I want to point out is user convenience and experience. So with regards to user convenience and experience, especially in the urban mobility space, we can see that new technologies offer more public transport modes for public transport choice users. For example, ride-sharing platforms like Bolt, Uber, along with mobility as a service solutions, they provide flexible and convenient transport options tailored for individual needs. So these initiatives simplify travel planning execution by offering a seamless user experience. Now, if we look at a few African countries, like cities, which have adopted rideshare services like Uber and Bolt, like we have Lagos, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, and others. We can see that these initiatives have changed the urban mobility, making it easier for residents from different diverse socio-economic backgrounds and with unique mobility preferences to comfortably navigate the urban spaces without needing to own a vehicle. Now, while there's a possibility of exacerbating the rural-urban divide because of usually data is expensive for the rural residents, we can see that the rapid expansion of internet access facilitated by satellite internet technology like SpaceX makes it increasingly feasible to bridge the gap, which presents an opportunity for pilot pilot rideshare services tailored to rural urban mobility contexts, fostering connectivity and accessibility even in remote areas. So just to conclude, I'll conclude by saying embracing new technology in road transportation not only drives economic growth and innovation, but also enhances user convenience, addresses the rural-urban divide, combats climate change, and by investing in this advancement, we can create a more sustainable, equitable, and purposeful future for all. Over to you, Nicola.
Yes, thanks a lot, and thank you for the inputs so far. So we've been talking for around, I think, 30 minutes now, and I took like pages of notes. It's really super interesting debate here. But as we're nearing the end of the debate, could we maybe find a way to agree? Like, what would be the best way forward? Yeah, and Regina and Carol, can you maybe help us to get to an agreement? Yeah, so maybe Regina, first over to you.
Thank you so much, Nicola, and hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the conversation so far. My name is Regina Gitau. I'm an urban planner and researcher, currently pursuing my master's in infrastructure planning in the University of Stuttgart in Germany. I'm also one of SLOCAT VREF's Young Leaders in Sustainable Transport as well. Carol and I are here to call a truce to this hot debate. But first, a huge shout out to my colleagues for putting up such a strong and interesting conversation, raising very pertinent issues that are dear to all of us. However, we have to come to a consensus, obviously, especially with the 2030 deadline to Sustainable Development Goals looming upon us. It's obvious we agree on one thing. The status quo cannot remain, and we need to explore different pathways that ensure our transport systems are more accessible, they are more efficient, they are just, they are safe, and they're sustainable. What's the optimal way then? What's the pragmatic approach to solving this dilemma? I believe in first picking the low-hanging fruits first. That means we can integrate these new technologies with the existing transport systems as a first step towards the right direction, instead of radically implementing new technologies and completely disregarding what we already have. This allows us to not only harness the advantages, or rather the benefits that these new technologies bring, but also maximize the value of our current infrastructure and transport systems. For regions that are still lagging behind in maybe shifting to more sustainable modes or optimizing their transport systems, quick win solutions, as my colleagues mentioned, would be electric mobility solutions, intelligent traffic systems, expanding infrastructure to support mass platforms, or even digitizing some of our transport services, because they're not infrastructure intensive and they're also not financially intensive. So it's a quick win solution. A personal favorite that is it's a good example of integrating new technologies with existing transport systems is in Kenya and Rwanda. Now, I'm being biased because it's home, but Kenya is electrifying its informal paratransit public transport system as a way to shift to more cleaner sources of fuel, and also leveraging on the existing resources. I also, however, have to admit that a complete transition to smart and tech-driven transport systems is inevitable, especially if we really want to hit the net zero emission mark by 2050. So a true transition is needed, but I'd like to advocate for a few issues, and one is a gradual versus a radical implementation of these tech solutions to ensure that we have space to test, to learn, and also to adjust. For example, we know if these tech solutions come, the jobs of transport workers are in trouble. So how do we ensure that there's minimal disruption in their livelihood? So we need time to ensure that their skills are upskilled, and we are able to reorganize the labor market in the transport sector. So there's no losers, then there are no winners as well. Second, we need data-driven solutions to ensure that these technological solutions are local, they meet the local needs and they're context specific, rather than implementing tech solutions that are one size fits all. And we know how that goes. It leads to social inequalities and regional disparities. So we need to ensure that proper research is done before the implementation of these solutions. Thirdly, we need to expedite policy and legal frameworks to ensure that they not only allow the implementation of safe and viable solutions, but they also support and provide room for innovation. So they need to be flexible, but also stringent at the same time. Fourth, a personal favorite, we need to ensure that financing is available, especially for developing countries that are struggling already with optimizing their current systems. So we need to ensure that we are creative on how we are sourcing funding to implement these tech solutions. For me, I feel like PPPs are a potential financial source, especially now that the private sector is kind of spearheading this technological transition. One caveat, though, is we need to make sure or actually promote business models that are not only driven by profitability, but also social benefits and impacts. Lastly, change is always met with fear and resistance. So how do we overcome this? So we need to ensure proper or extensive advocacy and awareness creation is done. And we can only do that by having such open and inclusive conversations over and over again to ensure that we have a shared understanding among everyone, not just professionals, but also transport users, transport workers, to ensure that we all have a shared vision of the future of our transport system. All in all, I'd like to say I believe the future of transport is smart, it's also green, but more importantly, it's equitable. And I believe we all have what it takes to get there. Thanks again for having me. I'm going to hand it over to Carol to take the discussion home.
Thank you, Gina. And thank you to all the speakers today. I feel like we've had a very interesting debate, and also special thanks to the audience as well for joining the conversation. My name is Carol Masingi. I'm from South Africa, and I'm also a young leader in SLOCAT VREF. And I'm also a PhD researcher at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands. Yeah, I would say that there are really interesting points that have been raised by our fellow speakers. And to reiterate the key points mentioned, yes, definitely a mixed approach that is integrating the new technologies with existing and current transport systems is critical, particularly in relation to SDG 7, SDG 11, and 13. So most importantly, in doing so, we need to ensure that the objectives of the Paris Agreement to limit the increase in global average temperatures to below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels are sufficiently addressed. Fellow speakers also agree that we need to support innovative and smart technologies that promote resilient and efficient transport systems. So in reference to Tendekai's point, indeed, innovation has driven efficiency in transportation globally and locally. And we have seen how innovation has revolutionized the way the transport system works, particularly in all low, middle, and high income countries. For example, you've all made a point about mobility as a service, for example, and how it has increased mobility and accessibility of transportation while also promoting the growth of cities. a lot of people have access to, well, most people have access to these types of technologies and they know how to operate them and they know how to use them sufficiently. And they, I would say that especially in the context of South Africa, have had a very important and very critical impact. The promotion of sustainable transport systems, such as the BRT as well, mentioned by Spencer and other participants, has been very pivotal in ensuring that some of the goals of SDG 11 are met. For example, the provision of affordable, equitable, safe, and clean and sustainable transport systems are addressed. For example, in the African context, like I mentioned, in South Africa, the provision of wireless payments, like the tapping systems on board, has really improved the waiting times substantially in the context of Johannesburg. And also when you think about in Cape Town, although not really the BRT, but the rollout of e-buses has been pivoted and has been piloted with the Golden Arrow bus. And this has made some interesting just changes in relation to how sustainable, with the goals of sustainable transport. So the adoption of the use of technological advancements in AI is very important because we can already optimize the existing traffic data in an attempt to also reduce congestions in major cities, which also potentially can contribute to decarbonization. And seemingly here, the argument is not about efficiency over innovation or vice versa, but the integration, the coming together of these two ideas. And lastly, and the most, I would say, the important point that was raised by Cecilia and also Regina, I would say, has to do with the implications for policy. It's very important to consider whether the investments in these new innovative technologies aligned with current policies that are set out by different governments, and whether these technologies have political buy-in, because if they don't, then it becomes really difficult to implement these technologies. Also, the issue of where the funding comes from, how the funding is sourced, as Regina has mentioned, is really important in the low-income countries, particularly. So hence, we all know how red tape and bureaucratic processes can be very arduous and also delay implementation. So we need to be very cognizant of these issues while we go forward, and we think about this very colorful debate about whether we should implement new technologies and for efficiency and vice versa. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll hand over again to Ray.
Also, let me also briefly conclude the debate, several things before we present to Ray. Yeah, thanks really a lot for all your inputs and for this great efforts that you in preparing and kind of executing this debate. Yeah, really amazing aspects I think were highlighted and really appreciate it a lot. I see at the end, I think there were lots of nodding heads from both camps. I feel like we came to an agreement, we came to some kind of consensus, and then yeah, I hope that it was also interesting for the audience to listen. I will now pass it to Ray to conclude the session, also to further facilitate any Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. So I guess there are some questions here from the Q&A that are better elaborated, I guess. So I think this one from Laurent. Laurent is actually one of the past speakers of the IRF Young Professional Summit. So hi, Laurent, and thank you for joining us. So his questions here, there are actually two. So first is historically, the fuel levy has been the principal funding source for road projects, including construction upgrades and maintenance. While EVs seem to reduce the upfront fossil fuel levy that comes from diesel and petrol products, what could be an appropriate rational approach to filling the gap in funding roads, especially in developing countries? So does anybody of you guys want to answer that one? I guess Cecilia, maybe you can share something about motorways, I guess.
Sorry, Ray, I was reading the questions. I didn't get your questions.
Yeah, so essentially about road pricing, I guess, like on the construction of roads, So it's usually funded by fuel levy. So what can you say that could fill the gap of funding roads, given that, you know, there are now electric vehicles?
I don't know.
So like in Brazil, I'm pretty sure that Ecorodovas operates motorways, right?
Yes, yes. I'm trying to look this question, try to find this one.
Okay, so while we're at it, I guess we can proceed to this question also, his second question. Secondly, at the national scale level, this projected decline of petroleum subsidies contributes to the national revenue. What could motivate the change? So Tendekai actually has shared something about the New Zealand, and all EVs and hybrid vehicles are required to pay road user charges. A similar approach can be used. So can you elaborate on that one, Tendekai?
Oh yes, thanks, Ray. Yeah, road user charges can be used because okay, what we are all trying to say is, if you're now using EVs and before you were probably using a petrol car, and then from the petrol where there was like a certain percentage of tax that was taken for road maintenance and road repairs. Now, because you are no longer buying the fuel, so you charge you the road user charges. I think yeah, it's applicable to in anyway everywhere. I know you mentioned that in the low and middle income countries, yes, it's very possible. You just do the math and then charge people so that we maintain roads, and you cannot travel on a road for free. Obviously, we need to maintain it, and yeah, that's all from me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. I mean, like, if we want to encourage, let's say, public transportation, I guess it's only good to like charge people who actually occupy the roads for their private cars. I mean, in a philosophical sense, I think that will be the best course, given that if ever everybody is now on electric vehicle, well, we have to still maintain the roads. So that will be a logical one. And I guess oh, sorry. And I guess Shashank also has something to say for the first question. Shashank?
Yeah. So historically, not just the pay user charges that Tendika is talking about, they are one way of recouping the financing of an infra asset, right? There have already been alternate historical methods like tolls that we used to have, and then e-tolls that was touched upon by Mark and Spencer, right? Uh, Additionally, a new technology that is now being considered in India and in some parts of the developing world is looking at vehicle level tracking, right? So the roads that the vehicle are on, you are tracking them by satellite, and based on the kilometers they are driven, you have to pay a road tax. So there are new models that are coming up which are integrating the existing landscape as well as some new tech integration, right? So this debate is actually quite on point with it, that the balance that needs to be casted for that. So that has been one way, and new ways are coming up on recouping different things. You have to also understand that while the fuel levy might be coming off, there are now charging infrastructures being put in place. So then you look at certain surcharges on those to pay for it. So you have to understand the business model landscape there. So a policy on charging systems and charging infrastructure would then be a sort of a tax through which people pay for it, because in India per kilometer for uh, electric vehicle is way cheap than for petrol, and I believe that's in now in most part of the world, right? So you might be expecting a certain surcharge there coming in to offset the petroleum levy. So it would be interesting to see how the policy and the business landscape evolves on this front. But that's actually a very good question. So back to you, Trey.
Yeah, thank you. So I think there's one more question here. We are 2 minutes away from closing. So I think this is the last question that we will have. So why don't we think first about appreciating countries that can produce oxygen and are called the lungs of the world, because most of them are in low middle income countries. So there's some kind of financial support for those countries. In the future, LMIC countries will automatically seek to reduce carbon levels and protect forests, because there is there is a reliable source of income for these countries. The issue of technology to reduce carbon levels can later be adjusted to conditions of each country. So who wants to react on that one? Carol? Oh, Spencer, okay.
Yeah, so I think that's more of a comment than a question. But
Yeah.
like he tried to put it, some countries that are considered lung of the world, like Liberia, we occupy, a huge percentage of the Upper Guinea forest, all right, that serves as not only for conservation, but to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So like he actually said, there's very low amount of income given to our country to reserve these forests. Okay, but I think quite recently the attention of the international community has currently driven towards Liberia. Okay, so some level of international funding is coming in to help us reserve our forest. So yeah, you are right that not much attention was being paid to countries that are considered lung of the world, but I think gradually with the presence of climate change and the pressing the pressing constraint to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, I think the world now is driven towards that. We are gradually trying to attract international finance. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Spencer. Mark, you want to add something?
Yeah, I would like to add something in addition to what Spencer said, because I think in the comment also, the person highlights that if we can maybe later, the issue of technology to reduce carbon levels can later be adjusted to the conditions of each country. I think we can try to have a way of merging innovation and sustainable development. For example, I take the electric vehicles. Most of the low and middle income countries, they don't yet have sufficient infrastructure and even, for example, for electricity. So maybe while developing the infrastructure, the transport infrastructure, they can implement, for example, the charging, so they can leapfrog so that they're not going to pass through all the steps that, for example, the developed countries had to pass. They can learn from the mistakes. So we can just like kind of find a way to balance both. Yeah, that's my stake also that I can have to complement what Spencer said. Nice comment though. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mark. And I guess there's just one last question before we end. So this one is from Erongo Erasmus. So while new technologies like autonomous vehicles and electric cars hold promise, integrating them into existing transportation infrastructure poses challenges. How can we effectively balance investment in these new technologies while optimizing current systems to ensure a smooth transition and avoid major disruptions? So I guess I can also react to this one. So I work in the National Economic and Development Authority in the Philippines, and it's really a difficult mix, to be honest, to be, doing infrastructure and adopting new technologies. And it is important to know how much resources you have and what things you need to address first. Okay, so if it's traffic congestion, which is the most affordable way and the most, well, in a greater sense, which is faster to implement, given that if it stays longer, there are economic losses there that will be going on. And then when we assess projects, we have to also make sure that these projects are implemented with the least amount of footprint and effect to the environment as well as to the communities. So that's one way of optimizing the current system. And then if for new technologies, well, we can see that like in the Philippine context, there are still a lot of things that needs to be modernized, but we are taking one step at a time. We can't just mix up our priorities and catch up with other countries as well. We have to address the needs first. So whether it's infrastructure, the vehicles that you have, or even other needs that might be needed to address first. Yeah. So any one of you guys want to add more?
Yeah,
Yeah, just
Yeah. Okay.
sorry.
Go ahead, Carol.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and it's a very good question because I think also in the South African context, we also struggle with the same challenges that you guys in the Philippines struggle with. It's not only about tending to like the promotion of these e-vehicles and autonomous transport. Is also like the maintenance of roads and infrastructure and making sure that they are functional. And also with public transport as well, there's a challenge with when you introduce new systems, what does it mean for the current systems that already exist and operate within their own bubble? How do you also integrate those into, like, for example, paratransit transport is very big in most low and income countries. So how do you ensure that you integrate these transport systems and also without disrupting them or also eliminating them in the process, because they do effectively play an important role in the current transportation systems? So yeah, I would say it was a really interesting question, and I don't think that there's an easy question to answer this. It's all context dependent and also depends on the political power that each and every government has. So yeah.
Yes, all right,
Yeah.
Shashank.
Yeah, that's great. No, just to add a quick one there, for example, it is really
Sure.
interesting. Can you get me?
Yes.
Yeah, so how to use the limited finances, for example, for these projects like the autonomous and connected vehicles. One of my stakes there, for example, in the developed countries, what they do, for example, is that they have like pilot projects. So, for example, here in Paris, in France, they had autonomous shuttles. They had pilot projects for a certain time frame where they can now study how did it go, what can we improve, and so on and so forth. So I think that is something that can also be can be done. For example, we have Waymo in San Francisco for ride sharing, autonomous ride sharing. So I think implementing pilot projects to see the feasibility of the project is also something that can be studied in the local context to see if yes or no it is viable or not. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And I guess Shashank wanted to say something as well.
Sure, but Spencer, you went first. You want to add something? Then I can follow you on that. Okay, I think he's so. For just to add something there, I think I further want to build on Mark's point that understanding that these technologies, yes, they hold promise. The question becomes, since I'm an entrepreneur, always think of it from a long-term sustainability lens, right? So when I say sustainability, it's both business as well as environment. So we have to understand that autonomous vehicle electric cars, they have been successful in certain use cases. Like ride hailing has been very successful with electric vehicles. Autonomous vehicles, not so much. There was a viral video I saw yesterday about 82-year-old two folks in an autonomous vehicle, right? And their reaction. So we are still not comfortable with the thought of someone not holding the steering wheel. So we have to understand the behavioral aspect of it, the side of it. Secondly, from a business lens, it is also important to understand that yes, they are holding promise, but they are not cost effective yet. So there might be certain use cases wherein you would want to have autonomous vehicles or robots coming into play, where it could be mostly, I believe it would pick up from logistics and warehousing, where there is significant reduction in bottom line when you're looking at more efficient operations, right? So there might be certain use cases that come out of it. It's not yet a generalized thing that we can see rolling out in the masses anytime soon. So I would give it a decade. But with that, I give it to Spencer. I think I saw his hand up.
Okay, yes. So you guys have made a very salient point already. So like Carl well put it, I think basically we face maybe similar challenges, but our country specific approaches are maybe quite different to to resolving these challenges. But on a general view, we tend to understand that there is no one size fits all answer to our mobility issues. All right, but I think that solutions should therefore be uh, tailored towards investing in a mix, all right, of affordable and accessible transport options, including public transport, all right, combined with smart mobilities. So there is no one size fits all answer to this problem. we should just invest in affordable and accessible transport, combining with traditional public transport as well as smart mobility. So yeah, that would be my point. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Spencer. So we had quite a lot of ideas going in 1 hour. So I think we have to be closing in already. So on behalf of the International Road Federation Young Professionals Program, I'd like to thank Nicola and the rest of the SLOCAT partnership for taking the lead in this collaboration with their equally brilliant SLOCAT Volvo Research and Educational Foundation Young Leaders for Sustainability. Thank you so much, guys. I also want to extend our thanks to the International Road Federation for giving us young professionals this platform to get our ideas out to inspire a better and sustainable future. This webinar series, by the way, is just the first of at least 5 young professional talk series leading to the IRF World Congress. And we will be hosting another one at the end of June. So please do stay tuned as we launch it soon. And also we hope to meet our viewers in the flesh. So the IRF Young Professionals Summit will be done in person for the first time, and we are all excited to meet you all. So please do consider coming to the summit in Istanbul. Again, thank you everyone, and I hope you have a great morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are. Thank you.